What is up, boxing fans? What is up? Fight Hype family around the world, around the country. Here, actually, in Carlsbad, California, just a little bit outside of San Diego, California. Still fresh off covering that Brandon Figueroa fight here in Southern California, in Ontario, Saturday night. Family wanted to stay behind and enjoy, the San Diego area a little bit, so we decided to stay out here for a few more days. But then I actually got to get back home tomorrow, back home to Las Vegas, so that I can catch Caleb Plant's public workout ahead of his fight for David Benavidez. I'll be there live with Fight Hype alongside my man Ron Goodall. But as soon as I get back home to Las Vegas, I have to drive back out to Los Angeles, to Southern California, to go see Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis's official press conference. They're doing a 2-city tour, Wednesday in New York City, Thursday in Los Angeles, California. I'll be on hand for Fight Hype live there Thursday. So I just want to let a couple people into the chat as I check the chat here, and we'll get going. But so my battery, it's actually my phone's on low battery mode. Let me take that off so that I can keep reading the chat without any interruptions. But good to see everyone, man. Just gonna let a few people get in the chat, and we'll kick things off with the Brandon Figueroa recap before we move ahead to Ryan and Tank having their first presser Thursday. I think the big question there is, how much bigger is Ryan than Tank? Is he just taller than Tank, or is he just the bigger man across the board? We get a glimpse at that Wednesday and Thursday for that fight. We'll have to see. Or is Ryan just the taller guy? Is it like when Oscar De La Hoya fought Shane Mosley and he was the bigger guy, but then when they hit the scales on the unofficial scales, they were both about 155 pounds. Oscar was just taller. Same thing with LaMotta and Robinson back in the day. Sugar Ray was just taller, but he wasn't, physically bigger than LaMotta in terms of weight. So we'll have to see. Take a look, because I think there's a chance in that fight that once it happens, Ryan can rehydrate to, about 150 pounds, and Tank will be about 145. And there's a chance that Ryan has a weight advantage on the unofficial scales on fight night. So and then of course, fireworks. Do we get any shit talk? Is there anything to glean mentally from either guy? As some of us play armchair psychologists, we'll take a look. But man, what's going on? CA Dimmercut, what's up, brother? World Tours 24. Where's the fight going to be at? Zashik already saying it's in Nevada. I think that the fight will wind up at T-Mobile. There's still talk that it could wind up at Allegiant Stadium where the Raiders play back home in Vegas, but it's a big fight. It's a fight that's going to do over 500,000 buys, but it's not that big. I think Allegiant Stadium, I don't know if there's really a fight. I mean, Mayweather-Pacquiao could have filled Allegiant Stadium. Maybe Canelo against the Benavidez could if Benavidez beats Plant, enough Mexican fans show up and support, they could sell out the Allegiant Stadium, at a good price tickets. But I think the fight's going to wind up at T-Mobile. So if you're booking for the fight, I would say go ahead and book at the Park MGM, because even if it winds up down the road at Allegiant, the Park MGM's close to everything. So just letting a few people get in here, and then we'll really kick things off with the Z-Cap, with starting with Figueroa and Magsayo, and moving on to Tim Tszyu taking on Tszyu-Harrison for the interim WBO world title this Sunday. It was Sunday. Yeah, we're used to it being Saturday, but it's actually Sunday. I'll be calling that fight live from the office. And then also want to talk about, what's the other fight we got to talk about? Fulton-Inoue, May 7th. It's official. Pound for pound, as good a fight in boxing as could have been made. So let's get started then, man. Let's get started with the Z-Cap. Brandon Figueroa prevails. I was at this fight in Ontario. Great fight. Brandon Figueroa deserved to win that fight. But as you could see just from looking at his face, it was not a dominant performance by him. He did not win 10 or 9 rounds in that fight. I actually wound up scoring that fight 6 rounds to 6, 114, 112. Those 2-point deductions really did Magsayo win. So I scored it for Figueroa. Everybody scored it for Figueroa, but everyone had it way closer than the judges did. And credit, Figueroa in that fight definitely dominated late, came on strong, but a lot of his work was holding with one hand and punching with the other, getting in clubbing inside shots where, he's not getting full extension, not sitting down on the shot always. Some of them are clubbing arm punches, and he still hits hard, even with one hand being held in a clinch and punch him with the free hand, he still gets these guys' attention and busts up their facial tissue, hurts them to the body, breaks their body down over the long time. But it's not the most flashy, impressive work. It's not, getting his whole body into it with the hook each and every time. Sometimes he's just touching you with arm punches, and he's so big at these weight classes that it breaks the guys down. The cleaner work in this fight, like in the 8th round when Magsayo did his best Roy Jones impersonation and exploded with 4 or 5 left hooks in a row and then landed a straight right hand. The most impressive punches of the night, the most eye-catching, head-snapping, knock the sweat off, and you can see the sweat fly from ringside kind of punches were Mark Magsayo, but he couldn't hold up under that pace. And I think I even tweeted before the fight, I think here, we'll take a look back at it as I do a little douche bragging. It's a little douchey to brag, but I call it douche bragging. Sometimes I got to douche brag on what I said I would happen before the fight. So before the fight, I said in California today for Figueroa and Magsayo, stylistically, got to expect something pretty good. If Magsayo can't drop or hurt him repeatedly with the right hand, he's in for a long night, and that's what the fight comes down to. And that is what the fight came down to, was he got Figueroa's attention and respect in a way that no other 122-pounder ever could. Stephen Fulton couldn't keep him off of him with his punching power, to save his life. He prevailed. He won a hard-fought, deserved decision in that fight, but he couldn't keep Figueroa off of him. Magsayo made Figueroa think twice, especially early in those first 4 rounds where Magsayo really was in control, won 3 of the first 4 rounds on my card. He made Figueroa think twice before coming in, and it makes sense because this is Figueroa's first time fighting an explosive, full-fledged, strong featherweight in Magsayo. That right hand made Figueroa think twice before coming in until he wore Magsayo down. And a lot of times Figueroa likes to punch where sometimes you want to either be too close or too far away. And he likes to smother guys in part because that's where he feels safest at defensively too. He feels like he's going to smother your shots. And even if he's not getting full, conviction on every shot, not getting his lower half into the shot, and he's clubbing you with arm punches, he's getting the better of it. And he could fight like that all night long. But Magsayo, with his physical strength, didn't let him just, in the first half anyway, bully him in the clinches. And he tried to give him his own medicine in the clinches, but wound up clinching too much. And the referee saw that and deducted the 2 points. At the end of the day, they got the winner right. Figueroa didn't win that fight so much on his skill. He won it on his will and his conditioning. Magsayo couldn't keep up with that pace and that pressure over 12 rounds. But I wound up scoring it a very competitive fight for Figueroa. That was a good fight. I think Figueroa would beat Ray Vargas, but that's a tough fight for him too, because Ray Vargas has better hand speed than he does. But I do think Brandon Figueroa would maul Vargas and would win that fight over 12 rounds. But these tall guys in these lower weights, Figueroa, Ray Vargas, Emmanuel Navarrete, moving up in weight, these fights are going to get tougher for them because they're a big part of what makes them at 22, 26 was their size. They're 5'7", 5'8". They tower over the super bantamweights, and they're bigger than just about all the featherweights. So, but I do think Brandon Figueroa, with like Jarrett Hurd, who fought in the co-main event, and now we see Jarrett Hurd isn't the fighter he once was when he was a hell of a super welterweight, and he was the champ at super welterweight. Ring Magazine, IBF, WBA, beat up hell of a fighters like Tszyu-Harrison, Austin Trout, and Landy Lara. I mean, that's a very good 3-fight streak he had going. But part of why Hurd was so effective in that window was he was physically bigger than all the guys he was fighting at 154, had a great punch resistance. And with it was a short window of him taking that much punishment in those fights, walking through like Joe Joyce does at heavyweight right now, walking through the bombs and being bigger and overwhelming the other guy with activity and pressure and size. That Figueroa is in the same spot Jarrett Hurd was in a few years ago, where it's not the biggest window. It's a small window fighting in that style, and it has to be at a weight class where you're going to be the bigger guy. So 26 could very well be the limit for Figueroa. At 30, I don't think he's going to be able to be nearly as effective at 30 as he has been at 22 and 26. So kind of like Jarrett Hurd in that co-main event, this is the window for Figueroa to fight the biggest and best fights he can, because that style is not made to last very long. especially once you start fighting guys your own size or even bigger. So shout out to Brandon Figueroa. He is definitely one of the true warriors in boxing today. No question about that. As tough as they come, he's got the baby face of a heartbreaker, but he's an ass kicker. I did joke around with him. I said, after the fight, man, you always come out to that Heartbreaker by Pat Benatar. How about a little Heartbreaker by Led Zeppelin? Or if you really want to throw us for a loop, how about Heartbreaker with Mariah Carey and Jay-Z? But that last one was more of a joke. He should consider Heartbreaker by Led Zeppelin, though. That'd be a good little switch up for the Heartbreak gimmick. But yeah, shout out to him, man. He is an absolute warrior. Definitely loved covering that fight. But he does have to be realistic with what he is in this sport. Coming up from 22 as the champion, lost the belt in a great fight with Fulton. Now he's the interim WBC champ at 26. It's not the longest window in the world with that style to be successful. So, and also quick shout out to his sister, Omaira Figueroa, because I asked him after the fight about her. Everyone always makes so much about the sister and good looking young woman and all that, but she has help with his other strength and conditioning coach, but Figueroa is one of the best conditioned fighters in the game. So I wanted to give her a shout out for that, along with the strength and conditioning coach she works alongside for Figueroa, because that conditioning won him that fight. So let me just see for a minute here. What's up, Brotherhood Sports? What's up, I Served 88? I don't think the scores were that wide, Sean. No, nobody did ringside. No media member ringside thought that Magsayo won that wide. Nardi Crash said, Sean, did Boots just duck Crawford? I got to look into that more. I mean, I saw what it was. I only went off some of the tweets I've seen on Twitter. I guess BLK Prime may or may not have had an offer for Boots, but it never really got past the front door because Bozy Ennis, who's had to get effed over in this industry already, which is part of why we've been waiting for Boots to get the shine we all think, he can inevitably gain and garner from boxing with his talent. And so I guess Bozy, from what I've heard so far, said, look, I'm going to step aside and let the business people talk with this. And that business talk between Showtime, who is contracted with Ennis right now, and BLK Prime never happened. So, you do with that what you will. I don't know if that really constitutes a duck. I'm not privy to those conversations. I can only read what you guys read about it. Just shows how good Fulton really is and that he should naturally be slightly favored as the bigger fighter with Inoue moving up. Yeah, and we're going to move on to that now. We are going to move on now to some great news in the boxing industry, in the sport. We'll get upset that fights like Crawford and Spence haven't happened yet. Fury and Usyk has taken a while to get done as well, but we got this fight, and pound for pound, this fight might actually be even better than those fights, or at least just as great. So Fulton-Inoue, May 7th, the same day that I believe Canelo and John Ryder are slated to fight. So that's going to be a crazy day of international boxing. Canelo, defending the undisputed super middleweight titles in Mexico. Fulton and Inoue fighting for pound supremacy and 100, super bantamweight supremacy. It's going to be an amazing fight between these two. And my early prognostication on this fight was that I do got to favor Inoue because, first of all, fighting at home helps in a 50-50-ish type fight. Every little inch favoring one guy could help the difference. I do think Inoue fighting at home only helps his chances. And I get the sense from this fight that, Inoue from the Pacific Rim, from the Asia, like Manny Pacquiao is, but he does remind me of Pacquiao. Not nearly as great as Pacquiao yet, and I don't think he'll ever quite reach the heights that Pacquiao reached. Although he is already a great little man, one of the great bantamweights in boxing history. One thing about Inoue that reminds me of Pacquiao is that incredible blend, overwhelming blend of power and speed. And that the athleticism they have in their lower body, the way they could spring with those monster calves and spring out. Now, I'm going to touch on that, how Fulton could take advantage of that in a little bit. But he does remind me of Pacquiao in that, okay, this guy's coming forward. You could touch him up. You could run him into shots, take advantage of his aggressiveness. But then at various points in the fight, he can offset 60 seconds, 120 seconds, 2/3 of an entire round of you touching him up, you walking him into shots, taking advantage of his aggressiveness. But then once he finds his offense in the round and he touches you, your legs do a funny dance. And now the judges just scored him a round that you were in control of for most of the round. I can see that happening to Stephen Fulton in various rounds in this fight on the road where the fight gets away from him on the cards in the end because of moments like that, where he's outboxing and piecing up Inoue, taking advantage of him coming in 2 minutes at a time. He banks a round or two in a row, but then Inoue maybe drops him, and those 2 rounds are offset by a flash knockdown that he just couldn't handle from that incredible explosiveness from Inoue. So that's how I see this fight happening. I see Fulton boxing extremely well, boxing better against Inoue than anyone else has. Yeah, Donaire hurt him in a war, but Inoue still won a majority of those rounds outside of almost getting stopped in, what was that, the 9th round in their first fight. But I think Fulton will outbox him at spots in this fight the way we've never seen Inoue outboxed. The problem is Inoue is going to make up for it with those overwhelming spurts. And really, he's more consistent than spurts. It's waves. Pacquiao kind of came in waves, and that's how I see this fight happening. Best case scenario for Stephen Fulton is a fight like this, is a fight where he tames the athletic, speedy puncher, like Mayweather did Pacquiao. Worst case scenario is this, Bradley Pacquiao, where Bradley, especially in that second and third fight, long stretches of time in that third fight when he got dropped twice, he was arguably winning the rounds he got dropped in. He was boxing well in that third fight and wound up losing by about 6 points because of the 2 knockdowns and just moments where Pacquiao would touch him and his legs would do a funny dance, and all the good work he would do in a round got away from him. Ultimately, I think Fulton and Inoue will fall somewhere between these two. I think he's going to do a better job against Inoue than Bradley did against Pacquiao, but I don't think he'll be able to put on and just outbox him over 12 rounds like Mayweather did Pacquiao. It's going to be a very competitive fight where I think, Inoue prevails at home on the cards, maybe gets a knockdown in the fight. I wouldn't be, again, I don't count Pool Boy Steph out. He is one of the best fighters in the game. And has fought a lot of good opponents, from Danny Roman to Brandon Figueroa and on. But I do think Inoue has that Pacquiao factor that Pacquiao had in his prime, where he offsets so much of the good work you did just by getting you in a certain moment in the round, in the fight. With that combination of power and speed that overwhelms at a certain point in the fight. I mean, even in this fight, I'm showing here Mayweather Pacquiao hurt Floyd in the 4th and in the 6th round with 2 left hands. So even him, who got tamed in that fight over 12, still had his moments. It's hard to stop that blend of power and speed and athleticism and just blunt it, all 3 minutes of every round. So I got to give the edge to Inoue. Larry Liston saying if the fight is close, they will give it to Inoue. Right. Another reason why I think Inoue comes out in a competitive fight is what you just said right there. But here's the thing about the great Japanese boxing fans: very honorable culture. And even if it's close, but most people think Fulton edged it. If it's a 115, 113 Fulton type fight, the Japanese fans, I think, will cheer for Inoue, but I think the media and the fans will hold Inoue very responsible and accountable, and they will write articles in Japanese saying they felt Fulton won that fight, and that'll probably get Fulton a rematch over there for more. But that is one thing I want to say, even though I do expect, if it's close, the benefit of the doubt is going to go to Inoue in Japan. But at the same time, if that does happen, I actually think the Japanese media will be very honest and transparent about that. So Fulton can't fight out of himself too much. If it's down the stretch and he's telling himself, close the show, keep my foot on the gas, that's good. But don't do it too much and risk, getting knocked out in a fight where you wind up winning 7-5 as long as you do what you do best. And if you don't get the decision winning 7-5, it's okay, because I think that fan base and that group of media in Japan are going to be very accountable with Inoue, very fair. And so, you'll still get the credit you deserve, even if you don't get the decision in that fight. That's again, at pound for pound, that's as good a fight as we could have hoped for getting made in boxing. I got to give the edge to Inoue based on the things I said. But one thing I want to go over that Inoue could, or Fulton could take advantage of is, back in the, before the Errol Spence Mikey Garcia fight, I had a great chance to chop it up with the great Evander Holyfield. In my opinion, behind Muhammad Ali, the second greatest resume in heavyweight boxing history. The guy beat Tyson. He beat Foreman. He beat him. I mean, Foreman and Larry Holmes were old, but he beat Tyson. He beat Riddick Bowe. He beat Michael Moore. On and on and on and on and on and on. And beat Hasim Rahman. On and on and on. So during this talk, you guys could read the caption if you want. Had an amazing talk with one of the greatest commentators. Anyway, he explained to us that. Hold on, where was it? Here we go. He talked about how strong George Foreman was and how he knew when Mike Tyson was going to coil and punch. So right there, he knew when Mike Tyson was going to coil and punch. So what Evander was telling me that night was, anytime I knew Mike was going to throw something that could be trouble, meaning not an arm punch, but something that could knock me out, something that could, remove me from my senses, I knew he had to coil with his legs. He had to, drive from those ginormous, legs he had underneath him where the power came from. He would explain that the minute I saw that coil in his body, he goes, half the time I wasn't even looking at his hands like I do most opponents. I was looking at his body, at his lower half sometimes, because anytime Mike had to spring up for just a split second, I knew that's when the bomb was coming. That was his tell. And Inoue does that a little bit too with that explosive lower half. He will kind of, Pacquiao, the way Mark has scouted him for the fourth fight and the way he knocked him out in the first fight, Pacquiao would coil and then boom, he would do that feint where he kind of coil his body, get ready to deliver and then shoot it off. Marquez saw that coil coming the fourth time around, knocked him out before the shot came coming. Maybe Fulton can take advantage of that. Maybe as fast and as explosive and powerful as Inoue is, maybe he catches on to his rhythm. He catches on to that coil before the shot comes, like Evander was telling me about Mike, and he's able to get out of the way, or he's able to get off first and boom, touch him and make him reset his offense. Fulton is not he could definitely wind up winning this fight. He's the natural 122 pounder who was headed up to 26 before the fight could be made. And he's a hell of a boxer, if not a top 10 pound for pound, literally the definition of knocking on the door. So Fulton could definitely pull this off. He's got the skills to pull it off, and he's got the Philly toughness to pull it off, like he showed in the Figueroa fight and in the Angelo Leo fight, dogging it out with those tough Chicano fighters on the inside, blow for blow, and then still outboxing them at range. So Fulton is a complete fighter, not a puncher. That is the question mark here. Will his lack of knockout power not get the respect of Inoue? But when you're a sharp puncher, an accurate puncher, getting that glove in their face is enough to make them reset, like Floyd Mayweather would do against bigger guys at welterweight and at 154. So it remains to be seen. I got to give the edge to the monster. And if the monster wins this fight, he is, to me, number one pound for pound. This is the fight that he needed to if you're 100, you're a bantamweight, right? And what do I got to America and abroad and in Europe that are much bigger than me, like the Usyks and the Crawfords and the Spence. What do I got to do to get to number one? This was the answer. Move up to 122 and fight a great American fighter, unified champion, undefeated, and Stephen Fulton. Look at all that hardware on the line. It's going to be beautiful May 7th. I may have fumbled the bag, guys. I wanted to go to Japan to cover that fight ringside, but your boy is slacking on the passport game a little bit and might have to just chill from the office in Vegas and call Canelo Ryder and call Fulton Inoue that night. So Fulton and Inoue, we do got to put Stephen Fulton's name first because these are for his titles. These are for the WBC and WBO 122-pound titles. So Fulton should come in last, should be introduced last, should have his name first on the poster, even though Inoue is the monster bringing in all the big money to Japan. Shout out to these guys for, getting handsomely rewarded for the fight we all wanted to see. And that's the perfect median right there. is we get the fight we want to see and these guys get paid. That's the reality of how it has to go down each and every time for us to get what we want. Somehow these guys got to get paid, either by becoming big enough stars from building themselves up from fighting and social media, or they got a gigantic fan base in another country like Inoue has. But hats off to both of these guys and everyone involved for getting the fight done. I can't wait to call it for you guys. Let me just check the chat here for a moment, see what you guys got to say about everything. Larry Liston, I like Fulton's style, but he's going to tire out eventually. Inoue's timing and speed is too good. Yeah, and that's the thing with Inoue. Great timing, underrated skill set. And more people are also giving props to the hand speed and the punching power, but he's got an underrated skill set, and like you said, good timing. And that's going to be key. He's going to need good timing because Fulton's going to do things with his lateral movement, with his jab, with his counter punching that's going to throw Inoue off his rhythm in a way other guys haven't been able to throw it off before. This is the ultimate. This is the final boss. This is the final test for Inoue. He'll have answered all questions if he can get past this style and this fighter in Stephen Fulton. And then for Fulton, I said if he's not top 10, he's knocking on the door. Well, he jumps from knocking on the door to top 10 to top 5. So, Kina Dimitros, good to see you, man. Pugilism, good to see Pugilism. Isaac Bermudez, Jake Paul versus Bill Nye, the science guy next. Well, you never know. I would take Jake in that fight. Let me see here. Rigo just lost to 2 Filipino boxers. How is he going to beat Inoue? Oh, you guys are still arguing about Guillermo Rigondeaux in the chat. What is this, 2017? Johnny says, is Inoue number 1 if he wins? Yeah, he's number 1 if he wins. He's number 1 if he wins. This is the final test for him. If he could beat a naturally bigger guy with all the hand speed, boxing ability, toughness, overall skill set of Fulton, who can fight on the inside too and not just outbox you on that, he could beat this guy moving up in weight, and he's the best pound for pound. So it's a great fight. Larry Liston, Sean, do you think Inoue will fight MJ Murtajan if he gets past Inoue? I definitely think so. I think Fulton been wanting to fight him, but I think that I think Inoue would without hesitancy. And here's the important thing for Inoue: he draws so much revenue that the boss gets what he wants. That's how Oscar De La Hoya was the same way back in the late 90s, early 2000s. If he called you out, get ready to fight him because you weren't going to turn down the money that was coming with it. And that would be the case with MJ. So Nardi Crash says Inoue's ability to generate maximum power and short shots will win this fight. Fulton will never get in his rhythm. Isaac Bermudez says it's a good fight. It's underrated, 50-50 for me. Pugilism said it's not the size, it's the application of it. And when it comes to controlling Inoue's guard, whenever the real estate closes. Hebrews says no need. Fulton gets you number 1 pound for pound. No, being the kind of puncher he's been in 4 straight weight divisions and becoming undisputed at 118, that helps get you to pound for pound. And taking into account just the level of dominance. I know, like you mentioned, the 2 names that'll come out are Fulton and Donaire. But in today's boxing, outside of guys like Canelo, Chocolatito, there's really not that many guys with deep, lengthy resumes anyways. So I just feel like the eye test and I think he's won something like 20 straight title fights I think 20 out of his 25 fights have been let's take a look. Let's box record. Let's cheat here for a minute. Inoue box record. I know by his 6th or 7th fight, something like that, he's already fighting for world titles. Unified. And one of them became undisputed at 118. And just the eye test. No one has a better blend of balance, punching power, and hand speed right now than Inoue. Emmanuel Stewart would talk about Joe Louis had this beautiful balance. Emmanuel Stewart, God rest his soul, would always talk about balance. It's the secret to a great fighter. Inoue has this beautiful blend of power, foot speed, hand speed, and balance that is special right now in boxing. He was Okay, that's right. He never did unify outside of 118, but he was the WBC 108 pound champion, WBO super flyweight champion, never got to unify there. And then once he got to bantamweight, he got all 4 belts. And now straight away fighting for really the crown. This is for the crown at 122. No one considers MJ the champion. Fulton has the WBC, the WBO, and the Ring Magazine title. So yeah, MJ will still have the IBF and WBA, but for all intents and purposes, this is for the crown at 122. So to go back to back at 18 and 22 would just be impressive, man. And again, look at these knockouts. I mean, the last guy that went the distance with him was Donaire, who he blasted out in 2 rounds in a rematch. Outside of Donaire, who's the last guy to go the distance with him? Let's take a look. We'd have to go all the way back to David Carmona in 2015. He's went the distance once in 8 years, and in the rematch, he destroyed a future Hall of Famer who was old and passed it, but he destroyed him in 2 rounds. So Inoue is a monster, man. That's not a hype. But moving on, we'll move on, man. Rolly Tuzon said, I'd say Crawford for me is number 1. Crawford for a long time was my number 1 pound for pound, but as inactivity has began to bite him, and that Spence fight couldn't be made, and not like there was great replacement. He hasn't fought Virgil Ortiz yet, and I think Crawford has lost his number 1 pound. He's still top 5, but I think he has lost the ranking for a moment. I'm cool with Usyk being. I don't love Usyk's style. I'm a little prone to. I don't. His style isn't the one I love the most. That Eastern European school of boxing, but I do respect that beautiful, busy feinting he does with his lead hand, eventually tiring these bigger guys out and pounding on them in the second half of fights, and being the greatest cruiserweight alongside David Haye and Evander Holyfield in boxing history. But yeah. Hebrews 10:26 says, I love you all, boxing heads. We rarely agree, but the love is real. Yes, it's also topic, but it's real. I'm with you, Hebrews. Everyone likes to talk about boxing fans or this and that. I love the boxing fans. I'm one of them. So I feel like boxing fans are some of the most passionate and well-informed fans in sports. So all right, now let's take a look at, this is a good fight, man. Tszyu and Harrison set to mix it up this Sunday, and I will be calling that fight live here on FightHype. Obviously not in Australia, but I will be calling it. And this is a hell of a fight. And that was a face-off yesterday. I love the energy from Tony Harrison. You see him, my man's rocking the Detroit shades. Someone from Detroit, help me in the chat. What are those called again? I've been told by people, but those Royce the 5'9" shades that him and Bumgarner have been rocking. So he's coming over there from, one of the greatest fighting cities in America, coming out of Detroit. He had his boxing IQ is on 1,000 from his dad, Ali Salam, and coming up under guys like Emmanuel too. He has an incredible boxing IQ. He's a very tall, fast 154-pounder at 6'1". Sometimes I wonder if he should have moved up to middleweight because he's so tall at some point. And if that has had something to do with his punch resistance, in that tall 6'1" frame down to 154 for years now. But and so I favor Tszyu in this fight because I do feel like Tony, we know you, Tony. You're a veteran. You've been fighting a long time. There's a lot of data, a lot of tape out there on you. So we know what we get from you normally against a guy like Tim Tszyu. You outbox him. You look beautiful until you begin to fade in the second half to get to you. Willie Nelson, Jarrett Hurd, Jermell Charlo. But before all those guys got to him, he was in control of the fight and was boxing beautifully until he began to fade as the fight progressed. And so because that is the book out on Tony, that's what I got to assume is going to happen, that he's going to fight beautifully. He's going to piece Tim's. He's going to hit Tim Tszyu with punches he's never seen before and felt before, including the Terrell Boucher fight where he ate. Tony's got a lot more than just a right hand to walk you into. He can walk you into body shots, uppercuts. He's got a much better jab than Terrell Boucher has. He is going to be piecing Tim Tszyu up. But Tim Tszyu tightens up defensively as the fight goes on. He doesn't do a whole lot of upper body movement, but he knows he has good hand positioning, does Tim Tszyu, and knows how to cut the ring off. One of the guys who does know how to cut the ring off, good timing, heavy hands, some explosiveness too, not just a thudding, heavy-handed guy. He's got eyes Tony with his quickness on the draw, with his hand speed. And then Tony, like he showed in his last fight, great along the ropes, can fight off the ropes, slip and slide, be slick along the ropes, punch you off the ropes. But Tim Tszyu is murder when he gets you on the ropes. He's accurate. He knows how to pin you there, knows how to smother and catch the shots. There's my mom. See you, Mom. And when you're slick with the upper body movement along the ropes, he has a very accurate and deadly left hook to the body. And I think that left hook to the body is going to be a problem for Tony in the second half of the fight when his back touches the ropes more and more often. So I am picking Tszyu to win late in that fight, even though I think Tony is going to do a great job early. But it's a hell of a fight. I can't wait to call it. Who you got, chat, before we get there this upcoming Sunday? Do you got Tony, or you got? Give me a 1 for the American for Tszyu-Harrison. Give me a 2 for Tim Tszyu. Who do you got? I got to go with Tszyu late in that fight. I feel like I've seen this movie before with Tszyu-Harrison, but Tony being a trainer now, maybe it gives him just a little bit different mentality that makes him prevail where he would have fallen short before. Because maybe he could be the rare guy. Previous losses, all stoppage losses. Fighters tend to go downhill the more they get stopped. But maybe he's the guy who learned from all of that, and his punch resistance is still whatever it was. It hasn't declined. It was never the best, but it's still what it was. And he still has all his physical prime left, armed with the experiences of the past. Maybe this time is the time he gets it done where he would have fallen short before against this kind of guy. I love the energy he's gone overseas with. He's gone overseas with great energy, fully expecting to win this fight. I hats off to him for going out there and challenging this undefeated young buck. And if he pulls it off, man, I'll be the first one to admit being wrong, and I'd be happy to give Tony his credit. He's a great interview, one of the funniest guys in boxing, one of the most skilled guys, and also I think is going to be a real asset to boxing and to young fighters as a trainer once it's all said and done with him fighting. But I got to give it to Tim Tszyu. Let me see, chat. 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2. So a little bit more of the Tszyu-Harrison love in the chat. That's to be expected. We're an American channel, right? So if what's up, Dane Sampson? Good to see you. Larry Lopez said Tony overall the better fighter. He is got more skills. He has a more repertoire of skills. He's got faster hands, better counterpuncher. But Tim Tszyu, just because he's coming forward and not doing a lot of, lack of a better way of putting it, flashy stuff, doesn't mean he's not skilled. He's skilled in the way his dad was, although his dad was a little nastier with the pulls, with the way he'd pull with his pull punches. He was a little nastier with it, a little more variety and a little more mixed up, and even that much more explosive and deadly. Kostya Tszyu was a monster. But he does have a little bit of that Julio Cesar Chavez, Gennady Golovkin skill where, okay, he's just coming forward, but he's not just coming forward. That is a little harder to hit than it looks. He's a little more explosive than it looks, and he's cutting that ring off. He's making that ring small in there. So, yeah, I still give the edge to the younger, fresher guy in Tim Tszyu fighting at home. But Tony pulls it off. Hats off to our fellow American getting it done. The Business of Boxing says Tszyu, Bull. Bully Block Boxing saying salute in the building. Good to see you, man. Salute Michael Manning. Salute Malcolm. Malcolm Emmanuel saying Tim can't beat Tony. Bully Block Boxing saying Harrison's a bum. Tim's going to clip him. Harrison's not a bum, but I hear you thinking Tim's going to clip him. Tszyu does not have good balance, says One Prayed. Well, that balance will be put to the test by some of the feet of Tony, but I've seen good balance by Tszyu, especially when he gets you where he wants you on the ropes. I like his balance. I like his uppercut up top. To the body, it's the left hook, but up top, his best shot is that uppercut. He knows how to pin you on the ropes, hold you there with the lead hand, and shoot the right hand over the top so you can't just pull away from it. If you try to pull away from it, he'll takes the angle, kind of like Maidana did with guys on the ropes, where you loop the shot a little bit. So even if his money shot in terms of hurting a guy is actually his uppercut up top. Hard to land that against a slick guy who knows how to fight on the outside. But if he could break Tony down as the fight progresses, whenever Tony touches the ropes with the hook to the body, at some point, if Tony gets pinned on the ropes and loses his legs, that uppercut or where you heard it. Fight Hype, my man, good question. What did happen to Jarrett Hurd? And I touched on that earlier in the chat. What happened to Jarrett Hurd is what may happen to Brandon Figueroa eventually, and Navarrete too, to a degree, where you got a short window fighting in that style, and it's most beneficial to go with no respect for what the other guy's hitting you with. That style has a short lifespan, and it has to happen at a weight class where you're the bigger guy. So, Jarrett Hurd, Brandon Figueroa is where Jarrett Hurd was a couple years ago. Good luck beating him right now. Good luck hurting him and keeping him off of you right now. But at some point, and it won't take until he's well in, because the amount of punishment he takes every fight. And if he can't stay in this division long, then that's going to be a problem too, because that style is only effective when you're the physically bigger guy, like Hurd was at 54, like Figueroa was at 22, and now at 26, not quite like he was at 22, but he's still going to be the bigger guy at 26. So what happened to Jarrett Hurd was he made the most of his short window. He made the most of his short window with that kind of style, fighting in a weight class you can only make for so long until your body outgrows it. Jarrett Hurd, to me, made the most out of his career with that style. He did. He became the unified champion. He took it to the top, right? He got to become a champion of a division. It didn't last long. He lost the belts to J-Rock. But if it is all said and done for Jarrett Hurd, he got to do something a lot of guys that were really good fighters never got to do. He got to unify. He got to become the recognized champion of his division. He retires as not a former super welterweight title holder, but as a former super welterweight champion. So, just to keep it good with that. But Ms. Joette saying, sorry, I just got here, but when does the press conference start? Press conference will be Wednesday in New York City, my hometown of New York City. And you say New York City, all the way live from New York City. Let me clear my throat. And that's what Ryan and Tank will be doing. I'm sorry, DJ Cool. I have to shout out New York hip hop references a couple times every time. So I think they're gonna wind up having that presser in LA probably 1 or 2 o'clock. I'll be there live. My man Vilified Media, Frankie, who holds it down for Fight Hype, will be there. So we'll be there for that. We'll try to go live too with the press conference as long as Wi-Fi allows us to. But to move on to that, Ryan and Tank. The big question I want to see in this stare down is, the tail to tape, up close and personal. We see it here from TMZ. Ryan is almost 5 inches taller, almost has the 3 inches of reach. But I'm curious if Ryan is just the bigger man across the board. I know that he's got to boil his body down to 136 pounds. So even if he looks big at the face-off, not going to be the case as much by the time they weigh in. But Ryan, who looked... Oh, my bad. Let me see here. So Ryan, he looked really big at 140 against Fortuna. That looked like that's his weight class now. Very wise of Tank's team to say, yeah, we're the A side. You're going to fight at 136. Because I do think Ryan's not really a lightweight anymore. He's a super lightweight, a junior welterweight. So that will compromise some of his size advantage, because at 140, if this fight would have been at a full-fledged 140, Ryan was going to be the bigger man, like for real, over Tank. He was going to rehydrate to around 155 pounds, whereas Tank would get probably around 149. So he would have a bit, as they rehydrate at 136, I do think Ryan's going to hit 150, 151, 152. Tank's going to be about 145, 146. So Ryan's going to have about 6-7 pounds. And I'm curious to see, is Ryan just taller than Tank, or is he just bigger than him across the board? Because Tank is a very sturdy, stocky built guy. Not stocky's a strong word. He's not, wide, but he is a strong, meaty bones on him, Tank at 135. But I'm curious to see how much bigger is Ryan than Tank. And I'm curious to see any armchair psychologist things we could take from it. How does Ryan react with Gervonta? Gervonta, when he saw Rolly Romero that first time in LA, Rolly Romero, some people said didn't keep the same energy, that kind of thing. Let's see if that's the case with Ryan Garcia, who said he'll knock him out in 2 rounds, who's been barking for this fight for about over a year now. Now he finally gets it. I don't get to see it first because New York City will get to see it first. My man Hans Themistode here for FightHype will be there covering that. But I will get a good look at both guys in LA this Thursday. I got to drive back home tomorrow to go see Caleb Plant have his media workout back home in Vegas. And then I'm driving back out here to Cali to see this press conference up close and personal. And that's what I want to see. Is Ryan just a taller guy like Oscar was with Sugar Shane, like Sugar Ray Robinson was with Jake LaMotta, or is he the taller, bigger guy? Not just the taller guy. So we'll see that, and then we'll see what we get from Gervonta. He usually plays it cool. The only time he didn't play it cool at a presser was Rolly, giving him some ammunition. Will Ryan give him that ammunition? We'll see. We'll see if either guy asserts their psychological dominance. Even though that stuff can be silly, but we'll see if anyone does that. And I think more importantly than the psychological stuff, just how much bigger, if at all, is Ryan Garcia than Tank? Is he just taller than him, or is he just an out and out bigger man at this point in their lives? So all remains to be seen. FightHype will be there live Thursday to see the action, to see what goes down. Hopefully, hopefully a little drama breaks out that does get us some. That does help push the fight, a little drama, but nothing that gets anybody hurt and gets a fight pushed off. And then another thing to look at is, by the way, over under. Does it take 30 minutes or an hour for Calvin Ford and Bernard Hopkins to dap each other up and give each other a hug on some OG penitentiary stuff? Like, we both went to the penitentiary. We're both super, super wise and making great money in boxing. We are the wise sages of boxing. What's up? What's up? And then they hug. I put the over under at I say within 2 minutes of the press conference wrapping up, they dap each other up. So that's a little fun side bet to have. But seriously, Oscar De La Hoya will be there. Will Leonard Ellerbe be there? Will Floyd Mayweather be there? Will we actually see Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather for the first time in, I think, a decade in the same room together promoting a fight? That would be incredible. That great content for us, but just what happens? Do they trade barbs about what their fighter is going to do? Does Bernard get in on it? If Floyd and Oscar start jawing back and forth, does Leonard, does Leonard say something slick? Because Leonard's going to keep it classy, but he may let something slick out at the end, and we know it's going to end in a knockout for Gervonta Davis. Thank you. See you all April 22nd. And then will that elicit a response? So will we get some fireworks from not even just the fighters? Will Floyd Mayweather show up in New York or LA? And if he does, it's pretty much guaranteed we're going to get something between him and Oscar that for us. And then Bernard will get in on it at that point. Leonard Ellerbe will get in on it at that point. And Joe Goosen and Calvin Ford are going to keep it classy and respectful between the two of them. Ryan and Tank, there could be fireworks there. So we'll see, man. We will be there. We will be there live for FightHype. We'll be there in New York City and we'll be there in LA. So keep it locked in. And Bully Block Boxing saying this fight is huge. Kina Dimitros says Tank needs a step stool to hit Ryan pulling straight back. Ms. Joette said, let's hope Oscar's not going to be all coked out and embarrass Ryan. Ms. Joette, speak for yourself. I kind of love but no, I'm being half funny, half serious because that would be good. Cause I'm being transparent with you guys. I'm letting you into the minds of how we work heading into some of these fights. I wouldn't hate that necessarily, Ms. Joette, but no, you're right at the end of the day, and I'm being half funny with it. So let me see what else we got here. Ms. Joette said, yeah, because Ryan is so extra, rolling eyes. No, he's not. He's a good kid. And he's actually gotten more mature as time has went on. When I first met Ryan, understandably so, 20 years old, super good looking kid, knocking people out. He was a little more full of himself, a little less down to earth. But to Ryan's credit, as he's become a more of a grown man, and he has 2 children now, very cool guy, a lot more down to earth now, and that's a credit to his development as a man, and that'll help him in this fight, be that growing maturity outside the ring. What will hurt him is his lack of maturity in the ring. The fact that he doesn't tuck his chin, he doesn't do a whole lot defensively, although guys rarely come in on him because they're worried about walking into that power, into that speed. And his great extensive amateur career, he knows a few things defensively as much as we criticize him for it. But yeah, I like what, but anyways, back to what I was saying. Him not taking that Hesta fight is going to hurt him. You know, that was a good little tune-up. Yeah, Hesta's multiple levels below Tank, but a lot of those Filipino fighters bring a level of explosiveness to the ring, and Hesta was the same frame as Tank, about 5'5", 5'6", southpaw like Tank, and explosive. Not explosive like Tank, but explosive. Ryan has had, and we could wind up, I box-wrecked it last time, but since Halloween of 2020 when Tank fought Leo Santa Cruz, Ryan Garcia has only fought 3 times. Tank Davis has fought 5 times, all of them being world title fights. Ryan has never been in a world title fight. And in today's sport where they're looking to, they're dying to extort you for 3%. They wanted to hand Jake Paul and Tommy Fury a damn belt. For you to not be in a world title fight is not a good look. You know, they practically hand those things out now. There's almost 4 or 5 or 6 of them every weight class. And the most he fought for was the interim title against Luke Campbell. So since that, you know, again, Luke Campbell, Emmanuel Tagoe, Javier Fortuna, those are his 3 fights since, let's call it Halloween 2020. Gervonta has fought 5 times since then, and against better opposition in world title fights. Yeah, they're, you know, people want to talk about who they are, but they are solid fighters with different styles. Mario Barrios, tall, you know, Esau Cruz, a short, stocky pressure fighter who keeps his chin buried, knows how to cut the ring off. Oh, wow, I got a call from some Mayweather people. I'm gonna have to hit them back after. They never call me, of all times to call me. But back to Tank, since the Santa Cruz fight, he's had, you know, including that fight, he's got to fight 5 times to Ryan's 3, and really that Emmanuel Tagoe fight was a throwaway fight. The Campbell and Fortuna fights were good for his development, but yeah, Santa Cruz, Barrios, Esau Cruz, Rolly Romero, who, you know, is wild and crude, but is explosive and dangerous, and then Hector Luis Garcia, who was coming off dominating Colbert, beating Gutierrez, is a good, skilled fighter, and you know, Tank took him apart. So Tank has the edge in experience. He has the edge in defense. He knows how to do certain things like feinting and positioning that Ryan hasn't really showed us to this point. Where'd that picture go? Oh, yeah, I lost it. But Tank has the advantage in skills. Ryan has the advantage in size. But how much does he have the advantage in size? That'll remain to be seen, you know, Wednesday, Thursday. For me, Thursday in person when I'm there in LA. So, so maybe for those in my BT, Crystal. So I'll hit her back. Got to hit up Crystal after this. Shout out to you, Crystal. Ryan will wash Barrios, says Larry Lopez. Maybe he would have, but I actually think that, I don't know about why. I think he beat him. Ryan's a more talented fighter than Barrios, and Barrios to me looks healthier at welterweight than he did at 140. But still, Barrios it showed in that Santiago fight, his last fight, you know, that he's a tough customer, solid fighter. Jeff Pena said Barrios really wasn't that guy. No, he's not that guy, but he's a formidable undefeated opponent. And how many of those guys has Ryan fought? Formidable undefeated opponents, you know. Tank, you know, has fought, Esau Cruz had the 1 loss early in his career. Rolly was undefeated and was dangerous, you know. I mean, again, crude. And we'll see how Rolly looks against Alberto Puello. That's a sink or swim fight for Rolly, because if they were really looking to protect Rolly and stay invested in him for sure long term, they'd give him a tune-up fight after losing by knockout to Tank. But they're kind of giving him a sink or swim fight with Puello. So we'll see what Rolly's got there. Right. She's calling about Caleb Plant for sure. Ryan is going to shock the world, says Sergio. It wouldn't shock me if Ryan wins. And look, it wouldn't shock me if Ryan wins, because anytime you have a mixture of the things that God either gives to you or doesn't, you can't teach him. He has hand speed, you can't really teach that. He has punching power, you can't really teach that. And he has size, you can't really teach that. So the good man upstairs has blessed this kid with enough that he could pull it off. I think, to borrow from my man BT, 70-30 is pretty much on the money. I think 70% chance Tank wins, about 30%, 25% for Ryan. That's a high number. I mean, if you got a gun to your head and they say it's a 30% chance that there's a bullet in the chamber, that's a very high chance. You're going to be quite nervous. So, and I talked to Bernard Hopkins. Bernard said he has to keep distance. He has to pretend a tennis ball is under his chin, keep his chin tucked so it's not up. Bernard said everybody likes to see what they're doing. They want to keep their eyes and chin up to see the punches landing. Keep your chin down in this fight. And Bernard said keep the distance and win a decision. I don't think he could win it. I don't think he'd win a decision. But part of me does think Ryan's best. The way I envision Ryan winning this fight is that Tank gives away early rounds like he always does, gives away too many of them. And then by round 6, 7, 8, he's got to do what he did against Barrios. He's got to do what he does in a couple of fights, which the corner, Mayweather, Calvin Forrest are telling him, you got to pick it up. It's time to go now, champ. And he goes. And now Ryan, who's just been taking what the defense gives him, Tank's giving away rounds. Now Ryan has a chance to get that big left hook off if Tank runs into it, having to make up some ground, giving away those rounds early. I think Tank turning up the pressure like he always does halfway through the fight. Let me share a screen so it's not as bad there. I think Tank, turning up that pressure halfway through the fight could work against him this time, and he could walk into a hook once he starts trying to turn it up, because that's what Ryan loves to do, the check hook. Just wants you to walk into the left hook. I expect Tank to win this fight because I think he'll figure out that hook. I think he'll use his feints. He'll use his superior defense and upper body movement, and he'll find a way to step inside without walking into that landmine of a left hook and eventually place a left hand that hurts Ryan and wins him the fight. So I think Tank wins this fight, but I won't be shocked if Ryan pulls it off. Again, anytime you got that kind of blend of God-given gifts, size, speed, punch, and power, you got a chance to pull it off against anybody. So let me see. Rolly wins. 23 is mad young. Yeah, he's 24 now, so this is a little dated, this tail of the tape. But Ronnie Boy Fresh said, please stop all the cap. It's 95% Davis wins by knockout. Hey, I read the comment, brother. Larry Listens, though, says this is a 50-50 fight, and it wouldn't be a shock for boxing insiders if Ryan wins the fight. Y'all didn't give Haney credit when he beat Linares. Haney's the lightweight champ. As great as this fight is, it is a non-title fight. And it's a bigger fight than Lomachenko and Haney. I for sure am looking more forward to Ryan and Tank than Lomachenko and Haney, but Lomachenko and Haney is still for the lightweight championship of the world. It's not going to happen, but ideally this would set up tournament style. The winners of Ryan, Tank, and Loma, Haney would fight each other, but we all know that's there's almost a very small chance that would actually happen. We'll be lucky if the winners ever fight each other. But that's that. Vigilante, thank you for the $2, my brother, said, I see it as a 60-40 chance for Tank. I got a little wider than you. I see it more 70-30, 75-25 Tank. But 30%, 25%, that's a fat piece of that pie chart. So Ryan's a live dog. Although Vegas is beginning to dare you to bet on Ryan. When the books first opened, Tank was closer, was about a 2-1 favorite. He's about minus 200, minus 180, minus 220. Now he's all the way up to minus 375, minus 380. That's Vegas digging in their heels, thinking Gervonta is going to win, because they're daring all those great Mexican-American fans, boxing fans, go ahead and take the 4-1 odds that left hook's going to land. We dare you. We dare you. So Vegas is convinced Tank will win this fight. So we shall see. Haney versus Loma should be a classic, says Christopher Robert Gear. It could be. Lomachenko has to show up in vintage form. If he shows up like he did for Jermaine Ortiz, he's going to get pieced up. He's going to get beaten in a convincing fashion he's never been beaten in before. If Lomachenko shows up like he did for Nakatani with spite, not touching with his shots all the time, but really committing to that left hand, throwing it with spite. He was so angry and spiteful heading into that Nakatani fight because of what happened when the Lopez fight. And then he went back down to earth against Comey and Jermaine Ortiz. Against Comey, he's got him hurt in the 7th, and he's looking for the ref to stop it. He takes his foot off the gas. Comey winds up making it all 12 when Lomachenko had him out of there halfway through. Lomachenko can't show up like that. He's got to show up with an edge, with some spite, with some dog, and be ready to take it to Devin Haney. Because southpaw like Jojo Diaz managed to step inside the long arms of Devin multiple. He won about 4 rounds in that fight, 116, 112. He whacked Devin repeatedly with the left hand. Once he stepped inside where Devin's longer arms, once he got into the real estate he wanted to be in, and he had to be patient to get there. He had to be very defensively solid and eat some shots on the outside before he got to the real estate in the ring where he wanted. Once he got there to mid-ish, close mid-ish range, Devin had a problem with that southpaw left hand, and that's what Lomachenko will have to find a way to do. But Devin Haney's a much, if not a much better fighter, a better fighter than he was in late 2021 when he fought Jojo Diaz. He's better now. He's the champion. He's not the contender. So ultimately, I think Devin's going to – Lomachenko, one thing he really banks on is that lead southpaw foot getting to the outside of the lead orthodox fighter's foot, getting that angle, and then getting off right there. The reason why he wasn't able to do that with Lopez was Lopez, an athletic American fighter, was able to pivot off with him and keep him on the line each time. Each time he tried to step outside and get that angle, Lopez had the feet and the athleticism to step off with him and keep him lined up. Haney's going to have the feet and the athleticism to do the same thing. Haney is an ascending force at 24 years old who's going to be a full-fledged welterweight one day. And Lomachenko started at 126. He is still a hell of a fighter, but not an ascending force. If anything, he's a descending force. Haney's the clear favorite in that fight. Maybe Lomachenko can do some of the things Jojo Diaz did in that southpaw stance, but I got to pick Haney in that fight. But we'll see what goes down in all those fights. Chat wound up getting up to 430 people. You guys are awesome. I don't have that much more to say now, man. We kind of covered all the topics. What will we hit an hour now? If there's anything you guys want to talk about before I get out of here, I'm going to take – we're here in Carlsbad. I'm going to go take my son and my wife. My wife scheduled some flowers garden at 11:30, so I'm going to get out of here in a minute and give my family a nice day, give them that love and quality time before this boxing grind gets serious because – tomorrow I got to cover Caleb. Thursday, I got to go back out to California for for Ryan and Tank. And the schedule's starting to heat up, so I'll be working a lot. But Tio and Josh Taylor, what's up, Johnny? Good to see you in the chat, Johnny. Tina Dimitros, I love how active you always are in the chat, big dog, saying Devin doesn't pivot well and curls up when leaning over when you pressure him. Good. My man Ken Dimitros watching his tape. But I think he might be aware of that alongside Bill, and maybe they improve on it now. But good scouting by you. Going back to that Diaz fight, Lisa Snow wants to know my thoughts on Benavidez' plan. I'll get to that in just a moment too. I'll start first with who was that? Tio and Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor deserves to be the favorite. He's the champ, even though a lot of us thought Jack Catterall with that left hand he kept sniping him with. It kind of exposed that even though Josh Taylor's a tall guy, he's not really a rangy guy. He likes to give up his height and fight at mid to close range and fight in combinations. It's not a guy who really likes to keep it long. And Jack Catterall at long range, sniping him with that southpaw left hand, took advantage of that. So with that said, he showed that although Taylor did fight a little better at long range with Ramirez, he did walk Ramirez into a couple of left hands that knocked him down. So he did show that in the Ramirez fight. But for the most part, Grace, Catterall, he's a tall guy who wants to get in there and exchange and win that way. And if he fights like that with Tio, that allows Tio to do what he does best, be the counterpuncher. Tio was not really allowed to be the counterpuncher with Kambosos, who had better movement than him, who was in and out and made Tio come forward. Same thing with Sandor Martin. Made Tio come forward, and that's where Tio falls apart a little bit on the front foot as opposed to on the back foot, because Tio, Floyd Mayweather, right? Great shoulder roll and all that. But when Floyd went forward against Zab Judah, Conor McGregor picked the hands up. He picked the hands up. He had a couple of different looks. Tio doesn't pick his hands up on the front foot. He still tries to fight in that hands lower, athletic style while trying to cut distance. And then he tried to do that against Sandor Martin, got caught, got dropped. Same thing with George Kambosos, pick those hands up a little bit coming forward. Canelo Alvarez is a guy who keeps all that upper body flexibility that you usually got to keep your hands down to have some of that. But he found a way to do it with the hands up. And that's some adjustments. I don't know how to do. I'm not a great boxing trainer, but that's something Lopez will have to work on. But all that said, Lopez probably gets the fight in the style he's comfortable with. The counterpuncher, the flashy counterpuncher, like he did with Lomachenko, because Lomachenko, as good as he is, everything with Lomachenko is front, side to side, front, side to side. He's not going to take a step out and walk you into the left hand. He's going to go to the outside, go to the outside, the lead foot, side to side, take the angle, bam, go and throw the punches going forward or off to the side. He's not going to make you miss and make you pay off the back foot. And that's why I always knew Lopez would beat Lomachenko. I always picked because I knew that was a good style matchup for him. This is a little trickier because this is a bigger guy and Josh Taylor than Lomachenko. But if Taylor's going to look to fight, that's going to allow Lopez to do what he does best, be the flashy counterpuncher with someone coming to him, and where his reflexes with his hands down can do what they do. So I give the edge. Maybe I'm biased. I am from Brooklyn. I give the edge to Teofimo Lopez because styles do make fights a lot of times, and I think this is a style he's better suited against. Any guy that's trying to fight, and get in there is a better style for Lopez as opposed to someone outboxing him. I think, with him not picking his hands up on the front foot, he runs out of answers against guys that are rangy. Even Nakatani, with his height, making him fight on the outside gave him problems because of that. But if you come to him and let him be that flashy counterpuncher, that's where Tio's at his best. And I think to a degree, that's the style Josh Taylor's going to be fighting in. Give the edge to Tio. I think Tio's a little bit better puncher than Josh Taylor, a little more athletic, but I don't know if he's mentally the dog right now that Josh Taylor is. Josh Taylor is a dog. Even though a lot of us felt like he lost against Jack Catterall, he was the fighter coming on in the late rounds, not Jack Catterall. He is a dog. So Taylor deserves to be the favorite. He's the champion. He'll be fighting at home. Lopez arguably lost his last fight against Sandor Martin, but styles make fights, and I think this is a style Tio's a lot more comfortable against as opposed to Sandor Martin. So I'll give the edge to Lopez. But with that said, man, I think let me just give a couple shout outs to the chat, the Brotherhood Sports throughout, the Amazing Bulk. Wilson saying Ryan has no consistent jab, not to mention footwork is atrocious. Right, but he does have an underutilized and underrated right hand. And if Tank's going to be languishing on the outside early, giving away rounds, I don't want Ryan to load up on that hook and let Tank download data like they would say when Lomachenko would give away early rounds. I don't want Tank to download that data and get a look at that hook too much. If he's giving away rounds, like they say in football, take what the defense is giving you and touch him with the straight right hand. If you got distance between the two of you and he's languishing out there, taking his time, touch him with the straight right hand. That's the shot against the southpaw. Straight right hand almost, is usually very effective if you know how to do it. And Ryan has a good right hand. He just doesn't use it enough. We've never seen his jab, so I'm not even bringing up the jab. But he could touch Tank at long range with that straight right hand. And then if Tank's giving away rounds, then you let the hook come out when he starts coming forward and taking chances after giving away early rounds. But, we'll see. Hey, Mr. Vegas. Mr. Vegas, we've had a long journey, my friend. At first you didn't love your boy. You thought your boy was an asshole, but I won you over after a while. We both live in Vegas. Shout out to Mr. Vegas, man. I'm happy that we came full circle, my brother. Jose Ramon saying, bro, say what up to Rosa Milano. Did I say that right? I got you, Jose Ramon. Jeremiah, good to see you, Jeremiah. Always holding it down in the chat, man. Good to see you. Do I think Figueroa and Ray Vargas will happen? And who do I got winning? I think it will happen. And I got Figueroa winning, although Ray Vargas has better hand speed than him. But I do think, and he's rangier than Brandon Figueroa. Size is even, but I'll give it to Figueroa. Younger, fresher, a little bit better puncher. Vargas can fade a little fights, and Figueroa comes on strong in the second half of fights. I'll take Figueroa to win that fight by decision. Charleston Moore says Figueroa has taken a lot of damage. He has, Charleston. I talked about that earlier in the chat. There's only a certain window fighting with that style to be effective. Jared Hurd made the most out of it, became unified, and then quickly his prime was done fighting in that punishing, grueling kind of style. So the Real Royal saying they never fought 6 times. I feel like you're mentioning Ryan and Devin. They did fight 6 times. I believe Ryan won the first 3 times and Devin won the last 3 times. I'd rather be the guy who won the last 3 times when you're getting closer to adulthood than winning when you're kids. So that bodes well for Haney. Exact. Kina Dimitro saying that straight right set up that phantom hook that hit Fortuna, and it was close, but Tank might be able to close that distance with his explosiveness. Right, but that straight right set it up. Like you said, I think the straight right hand is the punch for Ryan in this fight in the first half. Don't forget, if he ain't cutting distance and taking chances, Gervonta, revolve the offense around the straight right hand, until he looks to pick up his aggressiveness. Now it's time to walk him into the hook. That's just how I see it. For Tank, be Tank. Take your time, be patient, figure out whatever couple of tricks he has in his book, especially that hook. It'll look at that hook early and figure it out. Feint, better defense, be slicker up top, better. And at some point, this kid's going to leave his chin up and you'll time him. And when you time him, it's going to be a problem. So that's it for Tank. But for Ryan, it's more about fighting the perfect kind of fight. So playing Undisputed today. What's up, Caleb? Good to see you. I'm on the road. I'm in a hotel room with barely working Wi-Fi. So no Undisputed today, but I will be back with Undisputed whenever I'm live at the office again. That might be as late as Sunday when I'm calling the Tszyu-Harrison fight, and then I'll get some Undisputed in. Minnesota Mick. Sean, you're not covering Tszyu. I did. Mick, we went over that earlier in the chat. Rewind a little bit if you want to hear the Tszyu-Harrison talk. And I'll be calling that fight live with a round by round. So I'll close on that, man. You guys were awesome today in the chat. I want to rattle off and drop whatever knowledge I have in the chat because I want to give you guys a good show with all the topics. But that about concludes it, man. I'm gonna take the family out. You guys are awesome. Punchy. Saying, are you Jewish, bro? I am not. Not that it should matter, but no, I'm not. I'm Italian, Irish, and German. Mostly Italian. But that is I'm a mutt. That is my makeup. But shout out to everyone across the world. See you on the 25th, Johnny. Yep, see you on the 25th. Oh, Lisa Snow. That's right. You had a question too, Lisa. I'll close with that. Plant and Benavidez, I believe it was. And I got Benavidez, Plant is going to be a problem in the first half of the fight. His jab is terrific, and his jab to the body is terrific. David, a tall guy who stands straight up, Caleb's going to touch up that body with that jab to the body, and it'll set things up for him in the center of the ring very well. But Benavidez has a good jab too, and can match the hand speed of Plant. Once Benavidez touches Plant, finds the range in about rounds 4 or 5, that's when I think the fight changes and starts to swing in Benavidez's favor. And I think I think I'm kind of going along with the consensus here. I expect Plant to fight very well in the first half, Benavidez to get to him and stop him in the second half. But if Caleb pulls it off, for Benavidez late in that fight. The Brotherhood Sports, that's funny. Wilson says Caleb has to keep the fight in the center of the ring. Absolutely. And David has to let his hands go in the center of the ring because David only let his hands go against Anthony Durrell when he got him to the ropes. If he only lets his hands go when he gets, and it's important that he gets him to the ropes. That's where Canelo got his best work in against great boxers with great movement. You do want to pin him on the ropes as much as possible. But you got to make things happen in the center of the ring, too. You can't just let their skills and their hand speed handcuff you there until you pin them. You'll let too many moments of the fight, too many rounds get away from you there. So, yeah, Caleb does have to keep the fight in the center of the ring as much as possible. But David, unlike the Anthony Durrell fight, he has to be more active in the center of the ring behind his jab. David has a great jab. Caleb's going to be working his levels, touching him up top, touching him to the gut, touching him to the gut, touching him up top. But David has a great jab too, and he'll have to jab with the jabber to set up his own offense in the center of the ring and not just look to eat, catch, eat, catch, get him to the ropes and then pound on him. That fight could get away from you doing that. So we'll see. I can't wait to cover that fight. Big O says, I like David, but it seems like Caleb is in his head. That's something to watch for. He's got to keep his emotions in check and let that fear work for him, that anger, work for him and not work against him. But yeah, that's about it, guys. I'll get out of here. You guys were awesome. Much love to everyone in the chat. Let me go take the family out to go out and smell the flowers. But I'll be back. I will probably be live Thursday from LA with Tank and Ryan's press conference. So keep it locked in. Tim, Tszyu, Tszyu-Harrison this Sunday. I'll be doing that round by round call too. Much love, everybody. See you later. Okay, that's enough.